Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting me today, and thank you, Sarah, for this warm introduction. It is a pleasure to be here. It is my first time here in Davos in Switzerland. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm coming here from Armenia, and as Sarah mentioned, I'm affiliated with the Stimson Center. Let me pick up the conversation from where she left off and continue speaking about the general trends in the world, as well as tying them to the general South Caucasus region, because I'm from Armenia. This is closer to what I study and where I live, so I will share some insights of my own. As you know, our world is transforming. And this compels us to find new types of solutions brought forth by the challenges this transformation entails. The shift from unipolarity to multipolarity entails emergence of multiple actors capable of shaping the future of the world. And great power rivalry, including Russia-West confrontation, is exacerbating. We see increased competition for resources, for zones of influence, new transit and trade routes. We also see that the capacity of the international organizations and institutions to prevent use of force and war, unfortunately, is diminishing. We are back to might creates right formula, where the use of force for solving disputes and achieving goals is unfortunately becoming more common, as we can see around us in the world. We see how this unleashes conflict in different parts of the world. Europe, Middle East, South Caucasus, and other regions are just examples of the general trend. The world, as a result, is becoming more dangerous and prone to more conflicts and to escalation of global security issues. In the worst case scenario, which we all want to avoid, there is the exacerbation of great power rivalry, which may lead to a nuclear war, and that's something that no one should be fighting and no one can ever win. I will illustrate the practical effects of this on the example of the South Caucasus a bit later. Before that, I would like to say that I am involved in a US-Russia dialogue, Track 2 dialogue at Stimson Center, which brings together experts from Russia and from the US to discuss the most pressing and the most urgent international security issues and the issues that are on the bilateral agenda between US and Russia. As you can imagine, these dialogues are not easy, especially in these times, because there are a lot of things that the participants themselves disagree on, and this is something that we see on the news every day. We can imagine what disagreements they have, and disagreements are much more than agreements, actually. But I would like to share with you some findings from these dialogues which actually bring them together. Okay, so what are the areas where US and Russia have more commonalities rather than differences? Just a couple of examples from the dialogues. The list can go on and on, but I thought that might be interesting. The outcome of the war in Ukraine will be shaping the new European security framework. And the way it unfolds today will be shaping the future of a very large continent. It is important both for the United States and Russia that Ukraine conflict doesn't expand beyond its current geographic boundaries. The lack of communication between US and Russia increases the risk of an unintentional armed conflict and hampers the resolution of important international security issues where Russia's constructive engagement is essential. The risk of nuclear conflict is higher now than it was ever before, following the Cuban Missile Crisis. The US and Russia should resume dialogue on strategic stability and negotiate norms of the use of nuclear weapons based on current realities, and we know that a lot has been changing recently. And they should also collaborate on non-proliferation and solving the issues related to cybersecurity and cyber risks. The list can go on, but the bottom line is we believe that finding common ground between the great powers is going to is going to make our world less dangerous rather than if they move towards greater conflict. That is the bottom line, and the participants share this. Getting to the South Caucasus, which is actually a microcosm of what is happening in the world and how all these trends are reflected. Well, South Caucasus is comprising of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and it is situated between Russia, Turkey, and Iran. It is a geographically and geopolitically important region because the access to that region provides access to Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, and it serves as a gateway to Central Asia and Greater Middle East. So naturally, there has been a lot of competition for dominance over this region, both from the regional actors and from global actors. Thank you so much. Thank you. The water is never too much. Well, the region has been considerably affected by the war in Ukraine and by all the trends that I mentioned earlier. Let me just give you a brief overview of what is happening with each of these three countries, the dynamic of the relationship that is currently unfolding. We know that Georgia, following the revolution of 2003, the Rose Revolution, it has been moving towards the west, away from Russia. We know that this has been the trajectory of Georgia for many years, and recently this has been transforming, this has been undergoing changes as the current leadership of Georgia has been stepping away in several ways from its Western orientation, and it has been trying to establish relations with Russia. They don't have relations following the Russian takeover of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, but the current government is trying to establish relations with Russia, and we see that Russian influence in general in Georgia is growing. If the war in Ukraine ends in Russia's favor, then Russia will be having greater presence in Georgia. Another recent trend worth highlighting is the emergence of Chinese presence in Georgia. Georgia and China have recently signed a strategic partnership agreement. And we see in the recent years China making large investments in Georgia, especially in the infrastructure, in the framework of Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. It aims to construct an alternative and shorter route from China to Europe. This is just another example of the competition for routes connecting Asia and Europe through South Caucasus. Azerbaijan has been balancing between Russia and West, providing oil and gas to Europe. But Azerbaijan's closest ally remains Turkey. In the framework of one nation, two states, Azerbaijan is supporting Turkish projects, including Turkish corridors and expansionist projects in the region and beyond. The recent foreign policy trends in Azerbaijan have been forging closer ties with Russia, elevating the relationship to a level of strategic partnership, which involves increased trade, joint infrastructure projects, and closer collaboration on a range of sectors. Azerbaijan has also forged a strategic partnership with China, and China also is investing in infrastructure and other sectors in Azerbaijan. Armenia and Azerbaijan have been in conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh for many decades, it has been a frozen conflict after the breakup of the Soviet Union until recent years, when in 2020 Azerbaijan, betting on the weakness of international rules-based order, used force for solving the conflict with the support from Turkey. The war in Azerbaijan unleashed resulted eventually in complete takeover of the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh and ethnic cleansing of the 150,000 Armenian inhabitants. This was neither properly condemned nor followed by any sanctions from the international community, which is yet another example of how the use of force is becoming normal in a way. Armenia has been a traditional ally of Russia after the breakup of the Soviet Union. However, following the Velvet Revolution and the 2020 war, its foreign policy has been taken a more pro-Western course and has been diversifying to become more independent from Russian influence. I want to highlight that Armenia is currently the only pro-Western democracy in the region. That's how it has been classified by the West. Armenia has a comprehensive and advanced partnership agreement, SEPA, with the EU, and just 10 days ago it signed a strategic partnership agreement with the United States, which encompasses many areas of bilateral relations. And there have been many investments from EU and from the US to Armenia, and this is a trend that is going to increase. Another trend in foreign policy, and please let me know if there is a time limit and so that I don't exceed it. This is an important section for me because I'm dealing with India-Armenia relations at Applied Policy Research Institute in Yerevan. So there is an emerging trend of Armenia having closer relations with India. This is something that's unprecedented. While we see Chinese influence increasing in Azerbaijan and Georgia, we see that India is the Asian country that is more involved with Armenia. Armenia and India share civilizational ties, but the current pillars of the bilateral relations focus on infrastructure projects, that is the North-South transport corridor running through Armenia, and on defense sector. The unprecedented trend that is currently happening is that India has become Armenia's largest weapons provider. Armenia has traditionally been relying on Russia for its weapons supply. 95% of Armenian weapons always came from Russia. But within just a couple of years, given the war in Ukraine and other trends, Armenia has been forced to diversify its defense and foreign policy, and India has been instrumental in this diversification. So India has now replaced Russia as Armenia's chief weapons provider, and this is a major trend to highlight. About 80% of weapons that Armenia buys comes from India, and these are indigenous Indian weapons. Armenia is the largest buyer of Indian weapons as of now, and this is a trend that continues. There are also trainings and other military and security collaborations happening between India and Armenia. India's interest in Armenia is preconditioned by the international North-South transport corridor, but the Armenian section of it that actually connects India with Europe through Iran, Iran, Armenia, Georgia, and the Black Sea. Currently, the shipping time of one container from Mumbai to Bulgaria is around 45 to 60 days. But through this new route that India and Armenia are very much interested in, this time is going to reduce from 29 to 35 days. This means about 20 days difference. And when we're speaking about the shipment of containers and about the supply chains and the speed of freight moving from one continent to another, this is a huge difference. So in order for this project to materialize, there are several factors need to be in place. Investments are important, and also there are issues related with Iran, as you can imagine, related to sanctions and some other hurdles touching upon the security of the region as such. The last point I want to make, because this audience is very business-oriented, I would like to say that Armenia is also an interesting case of a place where technology, AI, startups, and the renewable energy and the infrastructure covering those areas is developing rapidly. There are strong diaspora connections with the Silicon Valley, with the space, defense tech, applied software, and Armenia has advanced AI technologies which include speech technology, image and video technology, and non-GSP-based autonomous navigation systems. Armenia has also built a robust startup ecosystem, which is in the forefront of some of the most creative AI product innovations. Some examples of startups are CRISP, which removes background noise from conference calls. You know, we all have the conference calls and Zooms, and this is a very helpful tool that we're actually using. It removes the noise and it makes the voice much clearer. And PixArt, which is a generative AI-powered photo and video editing tool. Both of these are unicorns, and there are also a range of other startups that are worth mentioning. There are also advanced chip design companies for international international heavyweights like NVIDIA, Siemens, and Synopsys have all branches in Armenia. This is a sector that is developing very fast, and a lot of investors from other countries are interested in this sector of Armenia especially. This is also a place where Armenia collaborates with India and with the US and with Europe, and another link between these countries. Well, Armenia is also a place where dialogue between conflicting parties can happen, something that I started my speech with. US, Russia, Iran, Europe, and a range of Middle Eastern countries can meet and talk in Armenia. This is a platform that is that can be facilitating dialogue, which is very important these days. And last but not least, we know that great power competition is never going to go away. But it is our task to mitigate it and to make it less dangerous. And I myself would like to see my country peaceful, and our region peaceful, and our world peaceful, because that's how we can develop, and that's how we can thrive as human beings. And that's something that I would like to highlight at the end, and to thank you very much for your attention.